While the Philippines has made significant strides in reducing poverty over the past decades, income inequality remains high. That's according to the latest World Bank report.
Still, the administration remains confident that it can address the gap between the so-called super rich and those from the lower to middle income groups. Camille Samonte with the big story.
The Philippines ranks 15 out of 63 countries in terms income inequality according to the World Bank. The multilateral lender reports that only the top 1% of the Philippine earners captured 17% of the total national income. 14% of the income is meanwhile being shared by the bottom 50%. The World Bank attributed the inequality to unequal opportunities, slow access to tertiary education among low-income households, inequality in returns to college education, and social norms putting the heavier burden of childcare on women. In a statement, the World Bank said that the Philippines was still able to alleviate poverty from 49.2% in 1985 to 16.7% in 2018. The problem is inequality continues to persist. Despite this, the Philippine government is confident that it can alleviate the growing income inequality in the country. In a palace briefing, NEDA Chief Arsenio Balisacan said the 8-point socio-economic agenda as well as the upcoming Philippine Development Plan for 2023 to 2028 are designed to address poverty and income inequality in the country.
The 8-point socioeconomic agenda and the upcoming Philippine Development Plan, PDP 2023-2028, is intended to address the issues like that, and that is to accelerate poverty reduction while ensuring that the rapid growth that the plan envisages for the medium term will also be very inclusive. Economic opportunities will not only for the upper income groups, but even more importantly for the lower and middle income groups. Inequality will be reduced.
Balisacan added that it will take everyone from government agencies to members of the private sector and civil society to their share in shaping policies and contributing actions to improve the lives of Filipinos. For News 5, Camille Samonte, We Are One News.
Here to give us his insights on the World Bank report, we have with us live by Zoom economist and pamantasan ng lungsod ng Maynila President Emmanuel Leyco. Good evening and welcome to the big story, Professor Leyco.
Good evening, Robbie, and good evening,
Gretchen.
Gretchen. Okay. I think the explanation by the World Bank is very descriptive. It's leading. First, when they cited income inequalities or opportunities that are not fairly distributed, lack of access to education, I think those are indicative of the structure of our economy. So, for example, the poor are basically those who are minimum wage earners, whose income are vulnerable to economic shifts. However, the wealthy people are those who own companies, who own shares in companies, and therefore their assets continue to grow, even with the economic shifts that we are seeing right now. And then in terms of the policies of the government, I think we need to take heed with what our economic indicators are telling us. So, for example, when they say the inflation is going up, I think we have to go deeper. Whose inflation is being affected? Oh, when they say 7.7%, that is for the aggregate number for everybody nationwide. However, when you talk about the poor, their inflation is so much higher than the rich, and the flexibility of the poor when it comes to managing inflation is so different from how the rich will manage their inflation. So, for example, if their income, because of income, they could no longer buy their food, there's nothing that they can do, so they just go hungry.
Yes.
So we have to understand the economic indicators better. The inflation index for the poor is so much difficult, so much worse when it comes to overall inflation.
Well, Professor, you mentioned indicators. We'll also talk about trends. Sabi ni Secretary Balisacan, the 8-point socioeconomic agenda is precisely designed to address these things, inequality as well as inclusivity. ito pong mga nabanggit niya, are these aspirational or do we actually have indicators, even right now, that we are trending in the right direction?
Actually, we have indicators that can manage our approaches. So, for example, when we look at GDPs, that is not a good indicator because that is an average per capita when we are looking at that. But when we're looking at inflation, that should be more indicative of where the economy is right now. So, in terms of their responses to these economic shifts. So when they say we will increase interest rate, that is not helping the poor. In fact, when they increase interest rate, that is more incentive for the rich who have excess income to put their money in the banks and they will earn more money. Meanwhile, interest rate will make cost of living for the poor so much higher and therefore their lives even more difficult.
Professor, there are two terms here that come out of the discussion. One is income inequality, the other is poverty reduction. What would be the difference between the two, and which would you say would be the better metric in which we could anchor our policies on and our agenda, the government agenda, to make sure that it hits the right markets, that we alleviate poverty where it should be alleviated?
Well, income inequality, I think, will be a #1 indicator. Minimum wage does not address the requirements or does not put the people in manageable position where they can buy what they need. Our minimum wage earners are so much more than those who are earning from their shares or from their deposits, from their the type of assets that they have. So when it comes to targeting the economy, wage earners like those who are earning only the minimum should be the focus of our policy. So I think the government can do better by giving more attention to how we can increase minimum wages so that the people will be able to address what their basic requirements are. And then when it comes to opportunities for social mobility through education, I think that is another opportunity, another vehicle by which the government will be able to address poverty. Like right now, the K-12 barely made an impact on making the people who can only afford to sustain their education through grade 12 have a decent income when they get employed. People or the companies are still looking for those who are able to finish college. So again, education is another aspect by which the government will be able to address income inequalities and address the policy interventions that the government considers when they are trying to manage the economy. Definitely, increasing interest rate is anti-poor. It is not going to create a dent on poverty alleviation. In fact, it will make the people's lives even harder because the burden of higher interest rates are passed on to the poor.
Yet, Professor, we hear from the administration that they are targeting to reduce poverty but from 18% to 9% by the end of President Bongbong Marcos's term, and they use poverty reduction as their main focus for the 8-point agenda. Do you think they should change terms, leading to focusing on income inequality? And what would you say about the figures that have come out? Top 1% of the Philippine earners have 17% of the total national income.
I think that is the picture being portrayed by the economic structure that we have. If you are a farmer, you barely make anything. And when it is compared to what the landlords are making a lot. So right there, you can see that the income from our agricultural sector is not equitable, it's not fair. And it will not bring them out of poverty, and the population of the farmers is quite big. When it comes to minimum wage earners, they're not going to get out of poverty earning the minimum. So right there, if the government does not address income inequalities, through restructuring agriculture, through restructuring minimum wages. I don't think having a 9% or reducing it by 50% by a period of time will not be possible.
All right, thank you so much for giving us your outlook on the recent study by the World Bank. Economist and pamantasan na lungsod ng Maynila President Emmanuel Leyco.